Okay, so in this screencast, we are going to be focusing on um, innate immunity. So, innate immunity is a type of immunity that you're born with. Our body's defenses have both innate immunity and acquired immunity. So, innate is what you're born with, everybody has it, whereas acquired immunity is immunity that you develop over time as you're exposed to various pathogens. So in this one, we're going to specifically start to look at these external defenses. Like the first thing that stops, these are kind of your barrier defenses that stops your body from pathogens getting into your body. And then we're going to move on to the internal defenses, ones that, okay, they made it past those barriers, and now what? Okay, so innate immunity is our focus in this screencast. Okay, so first of all, these external defenses. So in our innate nonspecific immunity, we've got external defenses. And these external defenses are generally physical barriers. We've got skin. Our skin is continuous. It's got a whole bunch of layers. It's dry. The pH is actually quite low. And because it has a low pH, bacteria and other pathogens can't colonize it very easily. We have some lysozymes that actually are enzymes that can break down pathogens within our skin. And there's even some nice non-harmful microbes that tend to live on our skin to help keep pathogens from colonizing on it. But then also barrier defenses on the, just like lining your lungs and digestive tract, are mucous membranes. So you've got a mucous membrane that, basically once you open your mouth or go through your nose, and it's going to has this sticky mucus that will trap invaders. Again, the pH is not favorable to pathogens, and it has the lysozymes and other organisms that can help keep things from getting into our body. If you're at home, I want you to take a minute to watch this little video on immunology in the skin. Okay, these barrier defenses, again, they're not specific, okay? So we've got our tough impervious layer of skin, our mucous membranes, and then we also have some secretions from oil and sweat glands that's gonna give our skin that low pH. This is just showing you the cilia within our within our trachea that helps push the mucus, and that has organisms and other things trapped in it. Will help push it back out so we can cough it up and get rid of it so it doesn't spend as much time in our bodies. Okay, so those are the barrier defenses. The next line of defense is of our innate immunity is the second line, is the innate internal defenses. So our internal defenses are phagocytic cells, antimicrobial proteins, inflammatory response, and natural killer cells. The ones that you need to know are for sure, and I'll touch on the other ones, but is the phagocytic cells. You need to be comfortable talking about phagocytic cells and the inflammatory response. Okay, so those are the two that you really want to focus on, but I'll introduce the other ones to you as well. Okay, so first of all, with our phagocytic cells, these are white blood cells, okay? And what they do is they will take in a bacteria. I'll show you another picture of them really quick, but they'll take in a bacteria or some sort of pathogen and engulf it. And then on the inside of them, they will digest it and then get rid of the parts. And they're actually able to identify pathogens because of the antigens on their surface. They know it's not you. And these phagocytic cells are going to be really important in our first response if the pathogen gets past our barrier defenses. Okay, so here's what one looks like. This is a phagocytic leukocyte, and you can see this one is engulfing some foreign material, and it will engulf it, and then once it's inside, there will be enzymes that can help digest it. And I like this this little diagram here showing the microbes that get engulfed, right, into a vacuole inside the cell. So it's got a little membrane around it. And then also in those cells are little membranous packets that can contain lysozymes. These are called lysosomes, and they contain enzymes. And those enzymes, when these two little packets of membranes fuse together, they will digest. So these enzymes come in and they digest the pathogen that's in there, and then it can actually spit it out through exocytosis. Okay, so this whole process is actually called phagocytosis of the cell eating. And that's kind of why a lot of these white blood cells we call phagocytes. Okay, and you're going to see they're going to play a role a little bit later when we get into the inflammatory response as well. And later on, when we start to look at your lungs, there's a lot of these guys that line your lung tissues and can find things that aren't you, because the pathogens have those little antigens on top, and they can say, oh, this is not you. I'm going to engulf it, break it up, and spit it out. Okay, antimicrobial proteins. These are proteins that are made by the body that help kind of tag and can interfere with the reproduction of a lot of bacteria and other types of pathogens like fungi and some enveloped viruses that have a membrane. So they're really important in our kind of initial immune response, especially for young infants. The inflammatory response. Now, this is something that's important that you need to be familiar with. The inflammatory response is, if you've ever gotten a cut or something and it gets inflamed and kind of red and hot, that is actually your body's immune system responding to that. So here is a picture of your skin here, and you can see we've got connective tissue and some other things. And oh no, you got a splinter, and that splinter has some pathogen in it. Maybe it's a bacteria or something like that. So just the fact that your skin broke, that will allow some of the connective tissue and these mast cells, which are part of your body, to release a chemical signal. That chemical signal is often a histamine. And these histamines, when they get released, they actually cause these blood vessels to dilate. So they get wider, and that makes them more permeable for the phagocytes, these white blood cells and macrophages, to get out of the blood and into the area, into those tissues, to be able to start gobbling up the pathogens. And so the histamines are an important chemical. It will dilate those red blood cells. And when it dilates, that actually makes the area warmer because your blood carries a lot of heat. But that's important because it's also allowing these phagocytes to get in there and be able to engulf the invading pathogen. Now, and especially this permeability of it, right? And so it feels warm and it's kind of swollen and infected. It feels like swollen and infected, but it's basically your body doing its work. There's another video you can watch on this inflammatory response. But one thing I wanted to share with you about histamines, that wonderful chemical that calls the inflammatory response into action, is that they're actually also, those histamines are responsible for allergic reactions. Those mast cells that I was showing you in the last slide, they release those histamines in response to, unfortunately, things that maybe aren't infectious diseases, and they can get a little overactive. So if you are allergic to something, your immune system, like something that is a foreign particle like pollen or a bee sting or some type of food that you shouldn't react to with your immune system, causes these histamines to be released. And that's why your eyes get red and swollen and itchy, because that histamine is causing that swelling and redness, okay? Well, that's why when you have an allergy, you take antihistamines, because that can control it and keep those histamines from causing too much swelling and redness. If you have a severe allergy, like to nuts or bee stings, a severe reaction of these histamines, like causing a mass systemic dilation of your blood vessels, can cause your blood pressure to drop, and you get dangerous swelling that can actually cause anaphylactic shock, which can lead to death. So it's kind of scary. And that's why people carry around EpiPens, because that can help counteract. Sorry, there's a bee, and I'm allergic to bees. That's kind of funny that it was coming after me just now in this video. So that's why people carry around the EpiPens, because it can counteract, it can get that adrenaline going to open up those blood vessels and reduce that swelling, so you can breathe if you're starting to be low on that ability. Okay, and then the last one, natural killer cells. These are cells that actually come and find any targeted cell of your body that says, oh, there's something wrong with this cell. And so it'll tag and help. It'll tell cells that in your body that aren't developing properly, maybe they're cancer cells, like some types of tumor cells, and it'll tell them to basically self-destruct. Okay. All right. And there's a nice little video showing you how natural killer cells work. All right. So that's the end of this screencast. And in the next one, we will start getting into some of the acquired immunity. So once our body has been exposed, how can we develop long-term immunity to things?